Stay with me until the very end of this story, because what begins as public humiliation turns into a quiet miracle no one saw coming. And if stories of heartbreak, healing, and unexpected love move you even a little, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps these stories reach the people who need them most. She didn't know that in just a few minutes, everything she believed about love would collapse in front of dozens of strangers. The restaurant was glowing with warm lights, the kind meant for celebrations, and she sat there smiling, fingers nervously tracing the edge of her glass, waiting for her fiancé to arrive. 5 years together. 5 years of believing she was building a future. She had said yes to him under fireworks, trusting his promises like vows already spoken. What she didn't know was that this night would end with laughter that wasn't kind, a betrayal that cut deep, and a whisper from a stranger that would quietly change her life. Her name was Elena, and she had always loved deeply, almost dangerously so. She grew up believing that loyalty was sacred, that love meant choosing the same person every day, even when things became difficult. She had met Marcus at work, back when they were both struggling and ambitious, dreaming of better lives. He was charming then, attentive, proud to introduce her as his girlfriend, later his fiancée. She supported him through job changes, failures, long nights of self-doubt. When he finally started making real money, she believed they were finally arriving at the life they'd imagined together. That night, she wore a simple blue dress Marcus once said made her eyes look like summer skies. She had chosen it carefully, thinking he might smile the way he used to. When he finally walked in, he wasn't alone. At first, Elena assumed the woman beside him was a colleague or a friend. But Marcus didn't introduce them right away. He laughed too loudly, draped an arm around the woman's waist, and only then looked at Elena with something cold in his eyes. "This is Vanessa," he said casually. "My girlfriend." The word girlfriend echoed in Elena's ears like a slap. People nearby turned to look. Vanessa smiled with practiced confidence, her eyes scanning Elena from head to toe, lingering just long enough to sting. Marcus didn't stop there. He laughed and added, "I figured it was time you knew." "I mean, look at her," he said, gesturing toward Vanessa. "Don't you think she's more my type now?" Elena felt her chest tighten. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. She stood up, hands shaking, and asked him quietly why he would do this here, like this. Marcus rolled his eyes and shrugged. "Don't be dramatic. You should have known. You've changed. You're boring. You were just convenient." Vanessa laughed softly, cruelly, leaning into Marcus as if she had won a prize. Elena felt tears burn her eyes, and when one escaped, Marcus scoffed. "See, always crying. That's exactly why I needed someone better." The humiliation was unbearable. Elena grabbed her bag and turned to leave, her vision blurred. That was when she heard a calm, steady voice behind her, low enough that only she could hear it. "Don't cry, he's not worth it." She turned, startled. The man who spoke was sitting alone at a nearby table, a little boy coloring quietly beside him. The man's eyes were kind, tired in a way that suggested life had tested him often. He didn't smile flirtatiously or offer pity. He simply looked at her with understanding. Elena nodded, unable to speak, and rushed outside into the cool night air. She didn't know why those words affected her so deeply, but they wrapped around her heart like a small shield. She went home that night and cried until dawn, not just for Marcus, but for the years she gave him, the future she lost, and the version of herself who believed love would never betray her. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of her life. She moved out of the apartment they shared, back into a small place that felt empty and unfamiliar. Friends tried to comfort her, but public humiliation leaves scars that reassurance can't easily erase. She replayed the scene over and over in her mind, Marcus's laughter, Vanessa's smile, the sound of her own silence. She almost forgot about the man from the restaurant. Almost. Until one afternoon, months later, she ran into him at a local bookstore. He was there with the same little boy, who was now clutching a dinosaur book and grinning proudly. "You're the lady from the restaurant," the boy said cheerfully before Elena could say anything. The man looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry." He remembers everything. Elena smiled despite herself. "It's okay. I'm Elena." "I'm Daniel," he said. "And this is Noah." They talked awkwardly at first, then more easily. Daniel explained he was a single dad. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him to raise Noah alone. There was no bitterness in his voice, just quiet strength. Elena found herself listening, really listening, in a way she hadn't in a long time. They began running into each other often after that, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Coffee turned into walks, walks into long conversations about life, loss, and hope. Daniel never rushed her, never pushed. He listened when she talked about her heartbreak, never minimizing her pain. Noah grew fond of her quickly, offering her drawings and asking her endless questions. Slowly, without fireworks or grand gestures, Elena began to heal. She laughed again, real laughter that surprised her. She noticed how Daniel always put Noah first, how gentle and patient he was, how his strength didn't need to announce itself. Being with them felt safe, like breathing after holding her breath for years. Meanwhile, Marcus's life wasn't as perfect as he'd flaunted. Vanessa loved attention and luxury, and when Marcus's career hit a rough patch, her affection cooled. Arguments replaced laughter. Trust was never built because betrayal was how their relationship began. One day, Marcus saw Elena across the street, laughing with Daniel and Noah, and something twisted painfully in his chest. She looked different, lighter, happier, unreachable. Months later, Daniel asked Elena to join them for a small picnic. As Noah ran ahead, Daniel took her hand, his voice steady but nervous. He told her he loved her, not because he needed her, but because he chose her. Because life with her felt fuller, kinder, real. Elena cried then, but not from pain. These were tears of relief, of gratitude. She realized in that moment that Marcus's betrayal, as cruel as it was, had saved her from a life where love was conditional and respect fragile. She had been mocked, humiliated, broken, but she had also been redirected. Years later, when Elena thought back to that night in the restaurant, the memory no longer hurt the same way. It had become the beginning, not the end. She learned that sometimes the worst moments carry the seeds of the best transformations. That love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers, "Don't cry. He's not worth it," and waits patiently for you to believe it. If this story touched you, remember to like and subscribe, because healing stories deserve to be shared. And remember this too, someone else's cruelty does not define your worth. Sometimes, losing the wrong person is how you finally find the right life.